Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be covering all these topics. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so those are the topics, but first, what's very important, this is for the holidays, I wanted to show you the cat in its natural environment. That's grass. Okay, that's grass. Just trust me, please, that's grass. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw our little feline friend. Uh-oh. There we go. Let's backtrack that real quick. Let me draw you the real cat, and we're going to draw a nice festive one. Red, like the color of my soul. This one, I have put a lot of love into. See? This one doesn't has a different eye. Look, it's smiling. This is his tail, and these are the feet. Now, what's going to be added extra is that we have a sun. Wow, 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 wow. That's part of the sun ray. I don't know why it looked like that. And I swear this is grass, and he just has the power of floating. Now, let's get into the first topic, shall we? The first question is, what is the best way to react and fight off drop when your POI is contested? I love the video and like how simplified it is. Well, I'm going to give you a simple version of what happens whenever you drop. And we're going to showcase bins, and then we're going to put some nice little floor loot down here. We're going to make all the loot yellow, right? So what you want to do whenever you go off drop here and whenever you drop on the POI, by the way, I'm going to turn on the music. I know you guys said you wanted music, but I really think it's nice and personal whenever we just do the music with no music. Yeah. Okay. So let's say you're a person and you're over here, right? You're the green little blob and you want to go for loot. Now, the most important thing that you need to identify is where opponents are going to be at, right? Let's say most of the opponents decided to be on the left side, right? And they went for the loot. So which loot are you going to go for initially first? Well, I know the most obvious thing that most people would say is go for the bin. Now, the interesting part is I'm not going to tell you to go for the bin, actually. My recommendation is always to go for the floor loot best you can. The reason why is you don't know what comes in the bin. Now, if you go on the left side of the bin, though, over here, this is where more likely the gun is going to be. But the downside is sometimes you don't get guns. Sometimes you open up, you see a bunch of heals or grenades, and then what can you do at that point? Run away and scream, ah! And then you're literally screwed, and that's kind of it. So my recommendation is always to land for the ground loot, right? Now, if you notice that more people are around the ground loot here, then it might be in your best interest to rotate and go the other way. So let's say, in another example, if you don't have anybody contesting at all, then I highly recommend you as a person then go for the floor loot first, and then rotate towards the action is. Now, I really recommend getting floor loot around the POI. So what we're going to do, let's kind of draw. Let's say there's multiple drops here, multiple POIs. Let's say there's bins here on this end. We're going to make the loot red this time just for convenience sake. There's bins over here. And let's say there's bins over here. And then let's make all the floor loot look like just a circle right here, right? Now, it would be in your best interest, especially if there's a building in the center over here where there could also be more loot. We're going to make the building a bigger red, just for example purposes, right? That kind of cuts off. You don't necessarily want to be in the center of the building at this point because then everyone's just going to run at you, and that's really scary to be, because if you're in the center, then you're probably going to be really scared. Like if this was you in the center, that would be really scary, right? And the reason why is because everyone's looking around you at this point. You know, you got a person who could come here, here, here. What you want to do, especially with that floor loot, is my recommendation, if you are the mighty blue orb, is to find a left side, right side, or angle where you know you have an escape path, right? This escape path is very important. Whenever you're on a plane, the first thing they always say is make sure you understand where your flight path exits are, right? And knowing your exits are important. So if you know that you want to escape, let's say you're going just this way, well, it's very important to know, well, maybe I just want to go this way in case it really is that bad of a loot. Let's say you just got a charge rifle and it's fully decked out and it just doesn't work for you. Well, it's time to rotate. Same over here. At least you have escape plans, right? So what have we learned here is that you want to land on the nice pool of loot where you can see the physical gun so you know what you're getting yourself into. That's important. If you're forced to land on a bin, loot the left side because that's more where the gun is going to spawn and be locating it, right? But also you don't want to land in the center. So always have an escape path whenever you're being hot dropped and contested. Now, if you want to, let's say, let's talk about a very, very hot drop, right? One that is overly hot to the point where it's nice and steamy. Let's say you're just dropping in the big POI, such as on Olympus, right? On the very south side. I can't think of the name all of a sudden. Please don't judge me. I'm a person, human being, just like you. So let's say, you got the center loot right there, loot, 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 loot. And then there's that's the weird square thing in the center. And there's the stairs on the north side right here, right? The stairs right there. And then there's that little elevator thing where you drop and there's a zip line. You know the building that I'm talking about. Well, this is one of those scenarios that if you drop, then you need to see the gun as you're dropping in. This is what you call a true hot drop. If you're dropping like this and you're considered insane, and you must be insane because you're comfortable with every gun. If you're not comfortable with every gun, I don't recommend doing this because you could hot drop and get a Mozambique and you're expected to kill everybody, right? So essentially what you want to do is land on one of these pools that you see here, sometimes the left, sometimes here, and you need to see them as you drop in. Sometimes hitting the side of the wall can get you down a little further. That can also help a little bit. Make sure that you're dropping as hot and fast and down as humanly possible. Now, what you could do if you're a mobile legend, this we're going to talk about abilities later. The theme today is hot drops. Then at that point, you want to use your Q and then get away, right? And once you realize things aren't good. But always make sure how many teams are here because there's only so many different pools. If there's 2 teams here and you see most of them land on this side, well, that's pretty good. Now, if you notice that they're landing on your side, then you're probably screwed. So try to decipher if you can get the loadout and if you need to get out and reposition and get right back in. But also have an exit strategy. That's an exit strategy that we discussed. And even then, we know there was a little loop pattern out here with that little building out here in this little area, right? Outside over on Olympus. So that's hot drop. So let's go into the next question, shall we? Now it says, as far as loot patterns, my problem is when someone else pings something and I feel like I really need, whether it's armor hop up and I need to zigzag to go through the loot POI. Well, that one is a pretty big one because let's say you're almost finished with your loot POI and they happen to ping, let's say, a gold mag, right? And they're all the way over there in Narnia. And unfortunately, you as a person are all the way over here, right? And you really want that loot over there. Now, there's a few things you can do. Now, let's say your friend is over here, right? And they're smiling because they have the gold mag, but they don't want to share it with you. Now, it was probably in your best interest to ask them, hey, my best friend, can you pick up that mag? And if they do, then you could turn that frown upside down into a smiley face that was once sad and that leaves a mark before. So, you know, it's always better to smile more. Now, in all honesty, it is very important that they pick it up for you. If it's something that good, especially if you're that far away. That looks a little frightening. I'm going to remove that. Now, the other thing you can do if it's truly important is change your loot rotation at this point. Let's say you wanted to fight over here because you heard shots happening over here, but maybe if you rotate the other way, there could be a team located on the other side. You tell your teammate, hey, instead of rotating this way, what we're going to do is I'm going to double back with you and we're going to go this way now to save yourself a little time. One, your teammate can go ahead and scout it for you and communicate with you, and that would be helpful rather than going this way and then leaving you as you go that way. Right? So 2 solves. 1, ask your best friend to pick up the loot for you. 2, change your loot rotation because now you're going to be late to this fight and I promise you it's not going to be worth it anymore. Or the third option at that point is to ask yourself, is that mag worth it? If it is worth it, you go back. If it's not, then really ask yourself, is it going to make that big of a difference going from perhaps a blue shotgun pump to a bolt, to a purple shotgun bolt? Most of the time, it's not really going to be that big of a deal. So at this point, I suggest everyone just go this way and then go fight. Then you can come back if you want to, because at that point, the fight's over with, right? Try to be efficient, try to be an efficient shopper, and that's my best advice to you. Now, the next one we're going to discuss is when to use ultimate abilities, because that's the question here, such as Bang, Horizon, Gibby, etc. So we're going to focus on Horizon and Loba. Let's say you're kind of far from a fight and you're over here, right? And you're scaling a fight. We're going to put a giant wall right here because that's the wall that you want to get to. And you're currently hiding behind this wall, right? Now we're going to make the opponents, I guess, green, just for example's sake, so they're a different color, right? Now, what most individuals do is sometimes they waste their utility by using it to get closer into the fight. Now, the downside, let's say if you throw your bracelet and go, wee, and then you land right there, now you're stuck and everyone goes, and they decide to push you and then you're pretty much screwed. You don't want to do that. Now, what you want to do is actually get to this spot first, and we're going to change it to a different color. Let's say your pathing is here, and you use cover in between to get to the spot. Now, the beauty is once you're here is you can use your Loba bracelet to reposition and get out. Now, let's say like we asked before, if you did significant damage, maybe you can use your tactical to go boing and get to their height and then look down on them if you manage to crack somebody and do a lot of damage, or even knock 2. Let's say you manage to do that. Then you want to reposition with your tactical. That would be really helpful. Now, let's say that you are a Horizon in this example. Let's say as a Horizon that you manage to crack 2 individuals, right? At this point, this is a really solid way to push. Let's say in this example, you do have your teammates nearby with you, right? They turn into circles. They're not real people. That's how our teammates are in real life, right? Now, what you want to do in this scenario is you want to push. Now, how do you push with it to make it effective? Well, you don't use your Q right here. You want to use your Q and you run up immediately and you pop it here because now you have height and you're pushing past the wall to push them. That is a really strong benefit. Let's say you're Gibraltar. Now you're kind of getting the theme here, right? Now let's say you're Gibraltar and you crack 2 of them and you throw your ultimate forward to get them scared and in the building. Because they're not going to want to hang outside the building, but now you guys can put pressure and start working your way up. You can throw a bubble right here if they decide to shoot you, or you can save your bubble to push even further. Now let's say that you're Bangalore. The same thing. Let's say you throw the bang ult and you throw it right here at this spot, but then it puts a lot of pressure right here and they're like, scramble, get inside the building, we don't know what to do. And you smoke your way up here and here for your teammates, and then you push, and then you're going to win now. That's where you start to use it as an extension of how you push. Now, the downside is here, let's say, for example, you crack 2 individuals and they immediately heal up, right? Well, that's not useful because then you can't push. And if you can't push, then there's no benefit here. Let's say like we saw our teammates disappeared and you managed to crack 2 of them and they healed up before your teammates got here. Well, you can't really use the utility quite yet, but you can delay. That's still where you can use the Bangalore ult to buy yourself some time, but you have to decide if it's useful. Because if you throw the bang ult, let's say you haven't even done any damage and your goal isn't to push them inside, you need to decide what utility can be used for. And it seemed like we wanted to focus on utilities such as Bang, Horizon, Gibby, or anything like that, and I added the tactical in there. So if you have more questions, let me know, and I can provide that in context. But again, are your teammates nearby? Are you able to push them inside the building and catch them out? Did you do significant damage? Are you trying to maintain pressure while you scale forward? Those are all the questions you should be asking, and you need to do it within a sufficient amount of time. Otherwise, by the time they bat, you have about 5 to 4 seconds, or you may even 7, depending if they bat really slow. Maybe they're really slow batters, and they say, hey, I'm going to bat, and we're all going to be really slow. And they sound like they're playing baseball if they're batter up, and they were really slow. Well, maybe it'll take them a little longer to bat up, to go to full health. Something to consider and be mindful of. Hopefully that's helpful. Now here's the next question. We're going to stick here. I'm going to name him Bob. All right. Bob wants to fight or when to rotate. Now let's say there are 3 people out in the open right here and they have no cover, right? Let's say Bob absolutely demolishes them because he's a demon on the sticks. Or perhaps that he's using MNK and he's just beaming and he's just god tier, right? Let's say that you beam this person and they are knocked, like they are gone, right? At that point, this would be a great time to push because they don't have cover, but let's say for this example, you have cover, right? This would be a great opportunity to push and make your way in, but remember, look for another cover to peek from. Don't necessarily just run right in the open because these 2 people can see you, right? Now, here's another example of when to rotate instead. Let's say you have all your teammates near you. We have to make them match though. There we go. And you do have that wall of cover. And let's say you're going back and forth and it's been an extended period of time. They're doing damage, you're doing damage. And let's say it's been about 15 to 20 seconds. On lower lobbies, you have a lot more time. Maybe you might have 45 seconds. Now at this point, if you're looking at zone, you're going to see a large timer at this point that says, oh, wait a minute, where our time is starting to shrink here. The timer just said that we have, I don't know, 45 seconds. And apparently there's no color there. So I'm really sad. But just imagine that there was color there for a second, okay? There we go, 45 seconds. And then I erased everybody else because they're gone because of the zone. Now, let's say you only had this amount of time left and you spent half of it trying to go back and forth, right? Well, that's not good because then you're just going to get gated and you don't want to get gated, right? I can get rid of this. Okay, we're back. So now that we know that we have a short amount of time, this would be in your best interest, especially if they're caught out, to rotate. Let's say in part 2 that they have better positioning, right? And they have height and they're looking down and you crossing. It would be in your best interest to just rotate, especially if one of you happens to get cracked or knocked. Now to avoid that, you would use Catwall, you use Bank Smoke, maybe you hide behind an angle and use Valkyrie ult to rotate and get in. Because if the timer does still tell you that all you got is only 45 seconds, then you know that you need to move. And if you don't move, well, it's going to be quite risky. So don't risk that. Rotate. Try to get a feel. We all have that internal timer that we know danger is lurking, right? And it's more important to go into zone at times than it is to fight, especially if you can't do anything quickly. It's perfectly fine if you can't, because sometimes the enemy just may not be peeking. Maybe they're purposely hiding to ensure that you're playing a very higher risk role. So that would be my biggest suggestion. Now, let's say now for the last one, we have Bob back here. You forgot to mention how you would counter Zen or strike packs in high rank lobbies. Well, let's say that you do have your squad near you, and what we're going to do is going to draw our squad here. They don't have faces because they're not real people. And let's say you're in a diamond lobby. We're going to put in the upper right-hand corner a diamond badge. Okay? There you go. That's our diamond badge. It's empty because we didn't get any points yet. Now, what we're going to see here is what do you do if you run into one of those strike packs, right? What can we do if they're using a Zen Cronus, or even let's say they're cheating? You can't do anything. You can't do it. I just gotta